Mr. President,
The senator from Illinois is recognized.
I have 5 requests for committees to meet during today's session with the approval of the majority and minority leaders.
Duly noted.
Mr. President, this Saturday, in 2 days, an important date in the life of one of the bravest people I've ever known will occur. October 2nd, 2005, 16 years ago, Army Sergeant Eric Edmondson was on patrol near the Iraq-Syria border when a roadside bomb exploded beneath his armored vehicle. Eric survived the blast, but went into cardiac arrest while awaiting transport to an American military hospital in Germany. Doctors worked for 30 minutes to restore his pulse. They did, but during that time, he suffered severe brain damage from lack of oxygen. Doctors told his parents that Eric would spend the rest of his life in a vegetative state, and the best thing they could do for him was to choose a good nursing home. But Eric's family refused to accept that fate for him. They searched for the best rehabilitation hospital in America, a hospital where Eric would have a chance to receive the very best medical care and have the very best chance for recovery. The hospital they chose was known as the Rehab Institute of Chicago at that time. It's now known as the Shirley Ryan Ability Lab. I visited Eric in the hospital several times. His family was always there right by his side. I'll never forget the one day I went in and Eric's dad said, "Eric has a present for you." I couldn't imagine what it was. Then I watched as that brave soldier stood up from his wheelchair and took several halting steps. There wasn't a dry eye in the room. 6 months after he arrived, I literally watched Eric Edmondson in his Army dress uniform walk out of the front door of that amazing hospital into the arms of his wife and his 2-year-old daughter. I thought of Eric and his miraculous recovery when I learned earlier this month of the death of Dr. Joanne Smith, a medical visionary and the longtime president and CEO of Shirley Ryan Ability Lab. Joanne died at home with her family at her side after battling cancer for 5 years. She continued to lead the Shirley Ryan Lab right up to the end. Loretta and I offer our condolences to her husband of 33 years, Rory Rapicki, their children, Claire and Michael, Joanne's 16 nieces and nephews, and her colleagues and friends, too numerous to count. Dr. Joanne Smith was a once-in-a-lifetime leader and a national treasure. With her brilliance, determination, and compassion, she literally reinvented the field of physical medicine and rehabilitation. As president and CEO of Shirley Ryan Ability Lab, she imagined and then led the drive to create the world's first ever translational research hospital for rehab medicine. She pioneered the concept of a cutting-edge research facility within a hospital with scientists, innovators, technologists, and clinicians all working to heal the patient. Seeing her team work miracles with wounded veterans, injured police officers, and stroke survivors made everyone a believer. Joanne Smith originally planned to be a nurse, but changed her major to pre-med after working as a hospital orderly. A chance meeting during her medical school with a young girl at a free health clinic in Detroit changed Joanne's life and the future of rehab medicine. The young girl had had both legs amputated because of spina bifida, but she learned to walk using her arms as legs and her hands as feet. She was happy, but her mother wanted her to have more normal appearance, so doctors fitted her with a sort of harness that included 2 prosthetic legs and gave her a wheelchair. Dr. Smith said it disturbed her to see that once happy girl become sad and less able as a result of the change in her appearance to fit in. She would spend the rest of her life working to discover cures that made patients more able, not less. Joanne Smith came to Shirley Ryan, then called the Rehab Institute, for her residency in 1988, fresh out of medical school, and thank goodness she never left. In 2006, a few years after earning her MBA from the University of Chicago, she became president and CEO. At that point, the hospital, the Rehab Institute of Chicago, had been ranked the #1 rehab hospital in America by U.S. News & World Report for nearly 20 years. If Joanne Smith had done nothing as president and CEO except maintain that reputation, she still would have been on the top of her field. But more of the same was not in Joanne Smith's makeup. She resolved to create a new model for rehab hospitals, the research institute within the hospital. The reimagined hospital opened with a new name in 2017, and just recently it was ranked as the best rehabilitation hospital in the nation for the 31st year in a row, a record unmatched by any hospital. Physical and rehabilitation medicine is a relatively new field of medicine. It began after World War II when doctors and researchers were trying to find ways to help returning veterans. Today, advanced rehab hospitals such as Shirley Ryan Ability Lab work with kids and adults with severe and complex conditions, from traumatic brain and spinal cord injuries to amputations and birth defects, enabling them to live as fully and independently as possible. The demand for such medical innovations is large and growing. The partnership at Shirley Ryan of brilliant doctors and researchers working with brave patients has resulted in some breathtaking discoveries. In 2006, doctors there at that hospital outfitted a man with prosthetic arms that he could move with his thoughts. That surgery, the first of its kind in the world, has since helped revolutionize treatment for people who've lost limbs. More recently, researchers at Shirley Ryan created the world's first manual standing wheelchair that allows users to move while seated or standing. Shirley Ryan serves more than 50,000 patients a year from nearly every state in 70 countries. Miraculous, but it's not alone. There are a handful of rehab innovation centers like it in America. They are the best of the best cutting-edge research labs within world-class hospitals that prioritize training the next generation of doctors and healers. My friend, Senator Bill Cassidy of Louisiana, has seen similar miracles at TIRR Memorial Hermann, a world-class rehab hospital in Houston, Texas, where many people from his state of Louisiana go for advanced treatment. The discoveries at America's best rehab innovation centers are revolutionizing medicine, and they are reaching people far beyond their walls. But making such discoveries and propelling the field of rehab medicine costs money, more money than these nonprofit centers can afford on their own. That is why today, Senator Cassidy and I are reintroducing our bipartisan proposal to recognize and support some of America's best rehab innovation centers. Our bill does two things. First, it directs HHS to set criteria for such rehab innovation centers and to share the best practices and teaching from those institutions with health providers throughout the nation and around the world. Second, our bill directs HHS to study whether Medicare's existing payment system is adequate to support groundbreaking treatment, research, and medical education that is taking place at the hospitals. When I first introduced this bill in 2013, I had a different Republican co-sponsor, Illinois Senator Mark Kirk. In 2012, Senator Kirk suffered a stroke that left him partly paralyzed and unable to walk. A year later, after months of grueling work at the Rehab Institute of Chicago, Mark Kirk was able to walk up the 42 marble steps into this Capitol building. In honor of the doctor whose brilliance and compassion helped transform the field of physical and rehab medicine that led to that astonishing feat, Senator Cassidy and I have agreed to rename our bill the Dr. Joanne Smith Memorial Rehabilitation Innovation Centers Act. I'll close with this thought from another brave person who helped to revolutionize rehab medicine. Christopher Reeve was America's Superman in the movies until he was paralyzed from the shoulders down in an equestrian accident in 1995. During the last 10 years of his life, he regained limited movement in his arms and legs. He also spent a great deal of time raising awareness of and money for the kinds of cutting-edge treatments that are pioneered at institutions like Shirley Ryan in Chicago. In his last public appearance, he spoke at Shirley Ryan. Christopher Reeve said, "It gets lonely sometimes urging people. Come on," he says, "let's take some reasonable risks. Let's try and be safe. Let's be bold at the same time. Doctors should take the word impossible out of their lexicons." That courageous, bold optimism, be safe but be bold, is what drove Dr. Joanne Smith and what inspires the work at America's best rehabilitation centers of innovation. Our bipartisan bill, we hope, will help advance that work. Mr. President, I yield the floor and suggest the absence of a quorum.